Hi, this is Patrick. Today I'm going to be teaching you the rules of a universal truth, the strategic card game of courtship set in the Regency era. A universal truth is a 2 to 5 player game that takes about 30 minutes per player, but that time may be a little longer if you're new to the game or like to play carefully. In the game, you'll be playing as one of 216 different characters. Each character is represented by a portrait from the Regency era. It's worth noting that I'm using prototype components, so the final artwork may look different. Also, the international version will almost certainly feature different artwork. The object of the game is to be the first to make a match with one of the other people pictured on the cards, but not the ones being used as characters by your opponents. You'll be encountering people throughout the game and will eventually find a love interest. Below each picture is a section detailing the requirements for making a match with the person on the card. There's a salary or dowry requirement, 2 icons indicating required social amity with both male and female relations, an affection requirement, and finally a list of the required accomplishments. We'll go over these in a bit. You're going to be building a tableau for your character that meets these minimum requirements in the card representing your love interest, and the first person to do that wins the game. At the beginning of the game, you'll start with your character card as the first card in your tableau. Before we talk more about the features of the cards and your tableau, let's take a quick detour to discuss how you obtain cards to begin with. Each player will start with a secret hand of 3 cards. There's also a rondel on the table made up of 10 cards plus a token for each player. At the beginning of the game, a certain number of dice will be rolled. This forms the dice pool. One of the things you can do on your turn is take a die out of the pool. You'll advance your pawn clockwise around the rondel, the number of spaces corresponding to the value of the die you selected, not counting any spaces occupied by other players. For example, if I took this 4, I would move my pawn around the rondel 4 spaces, skipping the other player pawn. Wherever you land, you take the card at that location into your hand. Finally, you replace the card at the location where you started with one from the draw pile. The pool of dice will dwindle and eventually there will be a reroll, but we'll talk about that more later. Now let's go over some of the other features of the cards, and then we'll see how they're placed in your tableau. There are items on the sides, tops, and bottoms of the cards. At the top, there's a money value. This can be added to your tableau so that you can eventually fulfill the money requirement for a love interest. We'll go over exactly how you add cards to your tableau in a little bit, but when you add money, it goes under your player cards so that the money is visible. You'll continue to add money cards here. The money on the top of your character card also counts toward your total money. On the left side of each card is an accomplishment name and a group of dots. When cards are placed into your tableau as accomplishments, they're turned so this name is at the top of the card. The number of dots after the name indicates how many times this particular accomplishment appears in the deck. That's important because you're going to be trying to create sets of matching accomplishments. When you are able to place another matching accomplishment, you'll do so by creating a stack. You'll only be able to have 4 stacks going at once, but you can discard one you don't want if you find you need room for another. As you create sets of accomplishments, each set will have a particular color corresponding to the card background. These matching sets will correspond to the requirements of a love interest. So if the requirement is 3 Ys, you'll need a set of 3 matching accomplishments with yellow backgrounds. If you have trouble determining the color of a card, you can refer to the color indicator in the right-hand corner, which is the same letter that appears in the match requirements. Requirements that have question marks can be met with matching accomplishments of any color. We'll go over how to actually add accomplishments to your tableau a bit later. Each player will begin with 2 starting accomplishments already on their tableau. These might be thought of as natural talents. The player with the fewest dots on these starting accomplishments will be the start player. If there's a tie, the player with the least money on their character card will be the start player. If there's still a tie, the player with the lowest number in the upper left-hand corner of their character card will be the start player. On the right side of each card are icons representing social amity with other men and women. You'll also be adding these to your tableau, and when you do, the icons should be visible at the top of the card. They will also create a stack as you add more. Again, we'll go over how to add these in a bit. Finally, at the bottom of the card, you'll see a variety of icons. These will allow you to perform certain actions in the game. But for now, I want to point out this heart icon. The heart icon corresponds to the affection required by a love interest. Once you have a love interest in your tableau, you'll be adding hearts underneath to indicate affection. If there's a heart already on your love interest, that counts toward the total requirement. Now let's go over the icons and how you can use them. You'll have your hand of cards, and one of the things you can do on your turn is discard one of those cards to use an icon at the bottom of it. Discarding a star will allow you to place another card from your hand into your tableau as an accomplishment. Discarding a pound symbol will allow you to place another card from your hand into your tableau as money. Discarding a socialization icon, these little talk bubbles, will allow you to socialize. When you socialize, you don't use additional cards from your hand, but instead draw up to 3 cards, one at a time, from the draw pile. Socializing is a press your luck element of the game. If you draw a positive card, such as one of these single or double icons, you can draw additional cards up to a maximum of 3. However, if you ever draw a negative card with this red anger symbol behind an icon, you'll bust and have to discard all of the cards you drew during this turn and end your turn. If you stop before you bust, you can keep all the cards you drew, adding them to the amity stack in your tableau. Regardless of whether you bust or not, you can only draw 3 cards and then your turn ends. Discarding an exclamation point will allow you to re-roll the dice. This can only be done if there are no dice left in the dice pool. When you're about to re-roll, every player, including you, must discard their hand down to 3 cards. This should be done before the dice are rolled. Finally, after rolling the dice, you must finish this turn by taking a die from the new pool and moving on the rondel as usual, taking the card where you land. If you want to re-roll but don't have an exclamation point to discard, you can discard your entire hand to take the same re-roll action. If you don't have any cards in your hand, you can discard your empty hand to do a re-roll action. But again, this can only be done if there are no dice left in the pool. Discarding a heart allows you to court. If you have a card that would make a good love interest in your hand, you can discard a heart to place that other card into your tableau as a love interest. Or, if you already have a love interest in your tableau, you can discard a heart to place another heart under the love interest as affection. You can only have one love interest in your tableau at a time, but if you decide to add a new one, simply discard the old one along with any hearts underneath. Courting has some additional requirements. In order to place the first heart under a love interest, one of the other 3 requirements that they have must have been met. You'll either need the money, accomplishments, or social amity before placing the first heart. If the love interest has a heart on the card itself, you'll need to have met one of the other 3 requirements before even adding this card to your tableau as a love interest. In order to place a second heart, a second of the other 3 criteria has to have been met. It doesn't matter which 2 you have met, but you must have at least 2. Similarly, for the third heart, the third criteria must be met. After that point, any hearts can be added with additional court actions without any other restraints. If you ever lose one of the conditions on which affection depends, you'll need to discard hearts down to the numbers we just discussed. So for example, if you had 4 hearts, but then lost the money required, you would need to discard down to 2 hearts because you have only met 2 of the conditions. The first person to place the final heart wins the game. So we've already talked about taking a die from the pool or using an icon. Your turn consists of doing one of these things. The third thing you might choose to do as your turn is to use an accomplishment power. Accomplishment powers come into play as soon as you have at least 2 of the same accomplishment in your tableau. These provide asymmetric powers and more options on your turn. Using an accomplishment power usually takes an entire turn, although there are some with ongoing effects. For example, the archery power allows you to use any die in the pool to take one of the next 2 cards directly in front of you on the rondel. Finally, the last thing you could choose to do as your turn is to discard a card to use the event listed at the top of the picture. That's a more advanced version of play, so I'll leave that for you to discover in the rulebook. So to summarize, on your turn you cannot pass. You must either take a die from the pool, play a card, use an accomplishment power, or re-roll. Play continues in clockwise player order until someone finishes the race. And that's how you play a Universal Truth. Now I'd suggest watching the run-through video to get a flavor for the game in action. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll enjoy a Universal Truth.